course, our focus right now is to build the projects we need to use the water we already have. And that'll give us a sustainable supply to about the year 2040. At that point, though, we need to either have new supplies to bring online or we'll have to resume the mining of the aquifer. We'll need from the state engineer a permit that says it's okay to divert our water from the river. And the idea here is the state engineer is responsible to make sure that our diversion will not impair the water rights of others, that will be conserving the waters of the state, and will be advancing the public welfare. There are also some federal requirements, the most important of which might be the development of the environmental impact statement, which will make sure that adverse environmental impacts are avoided. Through each step of this implementation process, we'll be working closely with the public. As we identify potential sites, we'll meet with the nearby neighborhood associations and community groups. There'll be a series of ongoing public information efforts designed to reach the public in general, and there'll be a series of public scoping meetings as part of the National Environmental Policy Act compliance.
I'd like to question some of these standards that you're using, the EPA standards.
I guess you have several different questions, and I'd like to address the first question.
In 1970, Congress passed the National Environmental Policy Act, also known as NEPA. That's a process that federal agencies use to determine whether or not actions that are proposed within their jurisdiction will have negative effects on the environment. Well, the first phase of the Northside project, we don't expect to see any really significant impacts. The drinking water project, however, is very large in scope because we're talking about drinking water for the entire city. We're expecting we're going to have a wide range of environmental issues we have to look at. The diversion method is going to probably involve some type of construction in the area of the Bosque, which is very sensitive to all the people who live along the Rio Grande. The water treatment plant itself may be a size of 100 acres or more. There'll be a lot of construction involved with building the facilities. There's primary concern coming from the federal agencies that are involved is going to be with endangered species in the river. If you're taking this water out of the river, you want to make sure that there's not going to be effects on Rio Grande silvery minnow. The Bosque itself is habitat for the southwest willow flycatcher, and both of these are endangered species that are protected under the Endangered Species Act.
City's plan certainly is going to have an effect on the river as we know it today. However, the Fish and Wildlife Service and a number of other agencies are working cooperatively with the city to assure that whatever action is finally executed by the city to take the San Juan Chama water into the municipal works has the minimal or least amount of impact on the riverine environment. Not only the current administration here in the city of Albuquerque, but also the previous administration is on record as saying that they're going to keep the river whole, irregardless of how they take their San Juan Chama water into the municipal works, and we're here to help.
The water reclamation projects will be constructed first, and when the environmental assessments are completed, the cumulative effect of all the projects will be evaluated.
The city has an obligation to provide a safe and sustainable water supply. Our job as citizens is to understand what it's all about.
The Customers Advisory Committee was started by the Public Works Department to basically provide input and reactions from ratepayers, just like you and me.
Let's flip back to one of the kind of options in the formulating action alternatives.
We were brought in to review the various options for water supply, and we were involved in working with the Public Works Department to assess and gauge the community feeling about various components. Is environment important to us? Are economics important to us? What do we think about quality of life? How much do we value the future of Albuquerque? And when we looked at all of those components, we made a choice on the option we thought would best serve Albuquerque and Albuquerque's future.
I think the people of this valley are very caring people, people of goodwill, who want to assure that this place will be habitable for our children and our grandchildren, and we're willing to take the steps necessary to see that that does happen. Many plans are in place. We see increasing cooperation. We see increasing citizen involvement and understanding about our situation.
During the Depression, Will Rogers came through this area on his way to California and later made the statement that the Rio Grande was the only river he had ever seen in the world that needed irrigation. A lot of people poke fun at this river, but the reality is it has been the lifeblood of civilizations dating back to the Anasazi refugees that moved here from the Four Corners area.
An acre-foot of water amounts to 1 acre of land, containing water 1 foot deep. Every year, about 1 million acre-feet of water flows by the city. The Rio Grande Compact requires that about 700,000 of those acre-feet must flow past us to serve irrigation and other purposes downstream. Of the remaining 300,000 plus acre-feet, the vast majority is consumed by vegetation along the river and evapotranspiration. A small portion, well under 100,000 acre-feet, is used for irrigation in the middle Rio Grande Valley. Albuquerque has over 140,000 water customers who require a sustainable supply of water for the future. But there are other voices that must be heard and interests that must be addressed as the city implements its long-range strategy.
There's another group of important people in the valley, Hector Gonzalez, who is on the board of directors of the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District. His people have been here for 300, 400 years. The feeling now is that their way of life is threatened.
I've been here all of my life, and in that span of time I've seen some very drastic changes along this river. And I've seen the city grow from a very small city into a very large city now, competing with the large cities across the nation. And they've come to learn that the water that they have been pumping out of the aquifer is not always going to be there. So they need to take another route to bring water in here in order to serve the community. The only way they can do that is to get into some good, positive agreements with the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District.
Not long ago, there was no one here but the Pueblos or their ancestors. They came here, or they stayed here, because the water was here. We're here because the water is here. We need to reach some common ground, some understanding, some mutually agreeable understanding with the Native Americans.
It's really a matter of sharing, again, like the traditional wisdom of our perspective in terms of how we look at water and how we look at the land, and then how the science community and the technicians in Albuquerque look at water and land, and come to some sort of a meeting of the minds, if you will, about how we approach this problem.
The foundation of our water resource management strategy is the Water Conservation Program. And while we know that water conservation is not the only solution, it will provide and extend the resource, and without successful completion, we will not be able to provide a sustainable supply for our residents.
Here we have toilets that are being crushed by Lafarge after they've been replaced by low-flow toilets that use about a third as much water.
25 issues, come on, let's get these toilets, let's rock and roll.
In 1995, the mayor and city council adopted a 30% reduction goal. If we achieve this goal, it will reduce the city's need for water by a third permanently. We did very well in the first 3 years of the program. We were down about 19%. Unfortunately, in 1998, we leveled off. We didn't see much additional reduction. So we need to re-energize the program, refocus on this going into the new year, and go ahead and get that 30% reduction.
The city's Water Conservation Office offers 3 incentive programs to assist customers in reducing their use. The toilet rebate and Xeriscape incentive programs provide credits on customers' water bills for participation. And the Audit and Retrofit program provides free conservation advice as well as free water conservation devices. Call 768-3655 for more information.
It's critically important that we get our act together, we decide what trade-offs need to be made, we actually agree, all of us, to give some in how we manage our water. It's easy to take. It's really hard to give.
This aquifer is a great regional resource that we have, but it is not infinite. It has very definite limits. It extends from Cochiti all the way down to Socorro. And within that region, there are many, many interests and entities who have straws in that big tub of water, if you will. And so it's just imperative that we all come together and find a way to meet all the many needs that exist within this region so that we preserve this aquifer for future generations.
So there's a lot of issues to deal with as we get to where we need to be. But the plan itself, the idea behind it, has great merit.
I feel that this new plan with this, using the San Juan water is probably one of the most important things we can do for the survival of Albuquerque and so that we will have a sustainable community. It comes before everything else, transportation, air quality, everything, because without water there will be no life.
You know, I've lived here for 38 years, and it wasn't until just recently that we realized we had a serious water challenge. We've done a lot of planning, we've developed a strategy, and now's the time to take action.
This water resource strategy is absolutely essential to our city's continued prosperity. It is a strategy that should involve all of us, because it's about our future and that of our children.
So who's going to make all of this stuff happen? We are, folks.
Albuquerque citizens are encouraged to learn more about these projects and to participate in their development. Public meetings will be held on an ongoing basis. The public is also invited to attend the regular meetings of the Customers Advisory Committee. These are held the third Tuesday of every month on the 11th floor of the City County Building.